What if the secret of happiness was found in the simple act of baking? For me, it is. It is partly tied in with my happiness. But it's where the ingredients you use can tell a story and they can evoke a memory. That's what is this? Golden Farms Molasses, unsulphured. That's what this ingredient does for me today. I can smell that and I'm immediately transported back in time to my childhood. And I'll tell you that story as we're making the cookies. So join me in the kitchen as we make old-fashioned molasses cookies. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is tell you what ingredients I'm using in this recipe today. We're going to use a half cup butter or a stick of butter softened to room temperature, 1/3 cup of dark brown sugar, 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, 1/3 cup of molasses, a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 cups all-purpose flour, spooned and leveled, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and I've got all my spices in here together. Cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, a half teaspoon of cardamom, half teaspoon of sea salt, and we may use some water in the end. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, set everything to the side here, but I want to get my wet ingredients in my batter bowl so I can cream them. We'll start out with this stick of butter or half cup. I think you can use coconut oil instead of butter if you would like. All right, there's my butter. I'm gonna put my sugar. Vanilla. That's homemade vanilla too. Set that to the side. And here's my dry ingredients. I got to put my molasses in there, but here's all my spices that goes in my flour. Let me whisk that just a little. Spices and baking soda. Set that to the side. Let me get my molasses in here. I was about to forget it. Ooh, that looks rich. Now, we did not call this molasses growing up. Being here in the South, we always just called it syrup. I can remember we had a farm, or my parents did, up in the edge of Wayne County, and we always called it the Manning place, or the old Pearson place. Sometimes they'd call it that. But he always grew sugar cane up there, and this time of year they would go cut it, or about Thanksgiving they'd go cut it all down and haul it to our home on a trailer. All right, now the first thing I'm going to do is cream my butter and sugar. Okay, now that we've got that kind of creamy, can you tell it's creamy? I'm going to start adding my dry ingredients. Now, I don't want to overmix it from here on out. We'll put a couple of spoons in, or spatulas in. Now let's do it a little lower and slower. Like I said, I got my oven preheating to 375. I've got a baking sheet with some parchment paper on it. Let me tell you about my memories of molasses. And like I say, we never called it molasses. It was just syrup. And my daddy made lots of it. When I was growing up, we had, like I mentioned before, we had this farm in Wayne County, and he always grew sugar cane up there on that farm. I've heard that you need kind of a sandy soil to grow it. But anyway, the men would go up there, cut it down, load it on a trailer. They would bring it back to our home where we lived. I'm going to call it in town, and it really ain't a town, but it's where the cane mill and all was at. But then they would take, this is at Thanksgiving now, this time of year, had to wait till the weather was cool. But the tradition in our home was to grind cane, and they would, after all that was done, I think it was after, they would kill hogs. He always had cane this time of year, and he always had hogs to butcher this time of year. But anyway, they would go get the cane, bring it back. Oh, he had a cane mill there at the house. What did he use to pull it or turn it? Is it like what you call it, a farm-all tractor? Maybe it was Grandpa's. He would bring his tractor. They always had something to use. But they would turn that old-fashioned cane mill, get all the juice out of the cane, take the cane over to the shelter where he had a boiler that was bricked in. They had them a good fire going. They would pour that juice in the boiler. I'm sure y'all have seen people make cane syrup before. Anyway, they cooked off that juice and made just quarts and quarts and quarts of syrup. Enough to share with everybody that was there. This always became somewhat of a family/community event. I can remember being a little girl, there would be people at our house to the point that I couldn't go in and go to sleep at night because somebody would be outside under the shelters working, whether it be a barbecue pit or just whatever. Maybe they were still cooking off and making syrup. But anyway, to finish off the syrup part of the story, he just made quarts and quarts of it. They gave it away, and at the end of the this would go on like 3 days. At the end of all that, there was shelving up under the shelter, and it would be full of quarts of syrup. I mean, full. And we would eat on that all year. Mama, she was notorious for making hot biscuits at night. Now, we worked. He was a farmer. There was always something going on through different seasons of the year, and us kids had to work. We got off the school bus, changed our clothes, and we went to the field to do whatever needed to be done at the time. So when we came in at dark, Mama always had a simple supper. She would make us a simple supper, and it always consisted of a biscuit. Excuse me. There was a biscuit on the table almost every night, and that's how we would eat the syrup. Now, I will say this. As this cane syrup ages, goodness, I can't quit coughing. As it ages, it gets darker and what I call stronger. So if we happened to be working on a quart jar that was kind of strong, me and my brother would always mix peanut butter in it. And to this day, I want peanut butter in my syrup when I eat it. To this day. And I'm 55 years old. But anyway, she would always make hot biscuits. We'd have syrup on the table. There'd be some type of meat and a vegetable. Simple suppers, working suppers. But there was never a time that there was not syrup up under our shelter. And that's what this reminds me of. I can open the lid on this, and I can almost smell being under the shelter when that cane juice was cooking. I can smell it. And some of you may know about what we call dog candy. If you do, tell me in the comments what you know about dog candy or what you remember about it. But I can smell this molasses right here. And I can smell, let's see, how do you say that? I can smell the smell that was circulating under that shelter when that juice was cooking off and when that dog candy was getting skimmed off. I smell it. And I think of all those people. There was always just all those people standing around the boiler. Somebody would have like a dipping pan, and they'd be stirring and watching and testing. But I can just see them all. It takes me right back to that place in time. Good memories. Lots of family, lots of community, lots of laughter. Good memories. That's why I like making molasses cookies this time of year. All right, this is the last of our dry ingredients. Let's get it incorporated and we will stop this mixing. I am thirsty this morning. It actually feels good outside. I think it was in the high 50s today, which we've been having 70s and 80s most of this fall. We've had very little cool yet, but it's coming. All right, let me see if I can get this off the paddle. Oh, that smells like Thanksgiving. It smells like all those smells like syrup. It just smells like syrup. There's no other way to say it. Let me make sure all the flour is mixed in. I don't want any streaks of white, and it looks like it is. Or by the time I turn it over with this spatula, it will be. All right, let me get my cookie scoop and see if we can't dip some of these out. Hang on. All right, here's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna scoop out my cookies. I'm gonna roll them just a little bit, and then I'm gonna roll them around in this white sugar. Now, I've not tried it, but they say that turbinado sugar is really good to roll these in. Gives them more of a exterior crunch. Roll it, sugar it. If y'all see my hands, they are beat and battered. I have been cleaning my porches this week. You know, in the fall here in the South, it's like everything wants to come in and make a home, like in your garage if you leave it open, or up on your porches. I've been washing out spiders and bugs. It's like they've got to find a home before the cold weather gets here. But it feels so much better out there knowing when I sit down in my chairs, I ain't got to worry about a spider under there. Won't last long, but feels good for now. All right, there they are. Now what I'm gonna do is slightly press them down if I can. Just slightly. Like I say, don't look at my hands. They are clean, but they are beat and battered right now. They are tools when I'm working. Feel like I'm pressing my sugar in, so I might, just might. I'm hoping this will stay plenty visible after they've baked. Okay, my oven, yes, is preheated. I'm gonna put them in there. I'm gonna say 7 to 10 minutes. You just have to watch them. When they puff up and start to crack, I'm going to take them out because they'll finish cooking. They will cook more on the baking pan after I take them out. Now, one thing I didn't mention, my dough is plenty moist. If it were drier, you can add like a tablespoon of water to this to make it more workable for you. All right, let's get these in the oven. I wonder if I can go ahead and ball some of these up. Let me get a platter. Just to make it where this job is not so long. I'm gonna see about getting this scooped up while I'm waiting on those first ones to bake. Is there anything else I wanted to share? If I can find any pictures handy of back when Daddy used to cook syrup. I mean, all my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, they were all there. The cousins would be running around and playing. It was just 3 days of bliss. Like I mentioned earlier, I couldn't even sleep at night. I remember my Granny Davis, had a sister. We called her Aunt Neezer, and her husband's name was Uncle Chester. And he just had this big, booming, scruffy voice. As a kid, it scared me to death. But I still remember, I had done been sent to bed, it was dark. But I can remember, he must have been in the kitchen or living room. Oh, he was talking and laughing, and whoo, what a big old booming voice, and I remember it well. What was their last name? Adams. Chester, and I think her proper name was Neza, like N-E-Z-A. No, I'm not sure about that, but we always called her Aunt Neezer. But Chester and Neezer Adams, and I don't even remember where they lived. They come in from out of town, not too far away, a few hours away, and they would spend the holidays with us. I don't know if they stayed at Pa and Granny's house. I'm sure they did. But they would be over there, and the men folk, they would be over there all hours. Because like I mentioned, and I won't go into that today, but they always killed hogs as well. So again, you need lots of hands available to work when you're doing that. But Uncle Sweat, we called him. Well, I guess that was his name. But he always manned the barbecue pit outside. And as soon as they got some hams and ribs and different things ready, he had that barbecue pit going, and it would be smoking. And we lived right in the middle of our little community. And you know, everybody had to smell it for a couple miles around. But he would be out there cooking all night. And they'd be some of the men sitting out there with him, just sitting there, telling stories, reminiscing, cooking that meat. Just good memories. And I smell it in this kitchen right now. I smell it. Do you have memories like that growing up? Now, I grew up in the South. What I've just described as that we did on the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. So you know all the ladies brought all the Thanksgiving dishes. There was always they'd just be tables lined up of food. Everybody would come by and eat. But do you have holiday memories like that? Did you grow up in the South and do anything similar to that? Did you grow up in another area and have some version of that story? Share your memories with us. What evokes those holiday memories for you? Like this cookie does for me. But what evokes it for you? Share that with this group so that we can all read it, hear it. Maybe somebody could even make a video and post it in the comments, or send it to me and I'll post it. But make a video of a recipe that does this for you, just like this molasses does for me. And again, we did not call it molasses. I need to Google and see if there's actually if molasses is something truly different. But we called ours not syrup, syrup. S-E-R-P, syrup. Rhonda Sue, go get me some syrup. But anyway, that's what we called it, syrup. But it smells just like this molasses you can get from town today. And I probably have a few bottles of homemade syrup in my pantry that's been given to me. I could have used it. Just good memories. Does anybody else make molasses cookies? I'm sure this molasses was back in the day when sweeteners or sugar was rationed and you couldn't get it. I'm sure there was a lot of things made from molasses, because molasses is something, sugar cane is something you could grow, cook it down. I think you can even do it in small batches. Daddy done it in a big old boiler, but I think I've seen where you can do it in small batches on your stove. What was it? 10 gallons of juice will equal maybe 1 gallon of syrup. Is that the ratio? Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that. I was a kid playing. I had no interest in the syrup making process. I was too busy playing with cousins I hadn't seen in a while. I think I've told y'all before, I come from a family, especially on the Davis side, I come from a family of they like to gather together. They liked to socialize. The men folk would always gather at the river or somewhere like this event that I'm talking about at Thanksgiving, or just out under one of them's shelter on the weekend. But they always liked to gather. They would cook, tell stories, hunt, fish, all those things. Let me check that first batch of cookies. All right, they are starting to crack. So I'm going to take them out and let them cook another minute on the baking sheet. All right, I'm going to let them sit right there. Oh, you see how those are? Now, I used a small cookie scoop, but I left them in 7 minutes, and they're already cracked on top. I'm going to let them sit on this baking sheet that's hot. A few more minutes, they'll cook a little bit more, and then we'll get more in the oven. Okay, I've got them all out of the oven. Let me taste one for you. Do I have a warm one anymore? I think they've done cooled. I made them pretty small. You take this one that I broke open. Can you see that inside is chewy gooey? That is good. And it's not as sweet as I would have thought it would have been. That molasses comes through. The spices are in there, but they're not overpowering. I get molasses over the spices. It's soft, it's chewy, it's warm, it's comforting. I love that sugar sprinkled on the outside. I think the next time I make them, I will try some of that turbinado sugar because it's more coarse, and I think it would give you more of a crunch on the exterior. That screams fall. I really was excited to share this recipe with y'all today. I just love to. This is the only time of year, and I'll probably make one batch, but every time I eat one or have one, it's going to take me back to that long tractor shelter that had a boiler bricked in, the wood burning, the smells, the wood, that cane juice cooking off, the laughter that you could hear around. It's going to take me back to that every time I have a bite because of that molasses. That's delicious. Do y'all have things that y'all only cook probably once a year? You'll see me do that at Thanksgiving. There's foods that we have at Thanksgiving that are knowns. Dressing, chicken and dressing, or turkey and dressing, whichever I decide to do. That'll be on the table, but it's probably the only time during the year I cook it because we love it. But I just like it during that holiday season. Those are so good, y'all. Please make them. You can't go wrong. Did y'all figure out what the missing ingredient was? I don't miss it. And I'm sure, where's it at? I got some over here cooling. Can you see these? I'm sure, I've got sugar sprinkled on mine, but I'm sure you can frost them. Why couldn't you make a molasses glaze? You can put sprinkles on them for fall. But there's something about just that plain old molasses. At least my first batch that I make this year, I just want plain old molasses. Can't go wrong. That texture is wonderful. Anyway, I don't want to hold this up any longer. I'm going to get these packaged up. Some will go in my cake plate just to have for the season. Just to have sitting around. Somebody will want one. We try not to eat many. We don't eat many. But if I think I've got too many made, I will send some to the job site and let the guys eat them. Nothing will go to waste, I assure you. Sweet memories of the holidays from my childhood. Sweet memories. Now, if you have any tips or tricks or regional differences, regional variations, please share them with me in the comments so that we can all read them. I'm going to clean up my mess and get these packaged up where someone else maybe can enjoy them. I didn't count how many it made, but it made quite a few. Looks like I've got one to eat. Now, y'all know, I believe that food has the power to bring people together. And this channel, I want to be dedicated to bringing people together through their love of food, their love of cooking, the memories that their cooking evokes. That's what I want this channel to be, that kind of community where we can all share each other's recipes and each other's memories. Together we'll learn, we'll laugh, and we'll build lasting connections through our recipes. If you're new here, please consider subscribing because we're going to be stirring up friendships one recipe at a time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.